Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Dev in the Details, the show where we get into the weeds for what's actually happening with real applications of AI. I'm joined today by Adam Gee, live in the studio, who's one of the founding engineers at Rubrik. Now, Adam has had a track record of picking the right technologies. After graduating from Stanford, he joined Google back in 2005, which is a stock ride I wish I could have ridden. And then not to be outdone, just a few years later, he joined Rubrik in 2014. At the time, that was a rocket ship that was just starting. I think you were one of the first 10 employees. It was a seed stage startup. And in the 10 years that followed that, all the way to becoming VP engineering fellow at the company, it went public. Now it has several thousand employees. And now Adam actually leads a lot of Rubrik's internal AI adoption and development, and is probably one of my most AI-pilled colleagues. I think, Adam believes engineers aren't just going to get 20 or 30% more productive. It's going to be 10 times. So, Adam, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Now, one of the first reasons that I thought it'd be great to have you on is just this week. In fact, I think it was day before yesterday, you published an essay internally here at Rubrik. And it really reminded me a lot of one of the essays that I saw go viral, which was called "Something Big is Happening in AI, and Most People Will Be Blindsided." Now, I thought your essay was a little bit more positive. This one was certainly both positive about the fact that AI is going to have a lot of impact, but also really recognizing the fact that a number of people are going to be blindsided by it. I thought your essay, really was a little bit more indicative of the fact that this is already happening internally at Rubrik, and we need to be able to start to get everybody else around the corner.
Yeah.
Tell me, why did you decide to write this?
Yeah, good question. I felt like, really, like, I don't think I read that article that you shared before. Maybe I read the headline and I sort of just glossed by it, right? Because
you probably saw it scrolling Twitter somewhere.
Right. Oh, yeah. Went viral. Like, oh, yes, something's different. Something big is happening, right? That's great.
Yeah.
I think for me, like through my own lived experience over the last, month, maybe 2 months, it just felt like something was really different. And I think that by using the tools sort of in a different way, I started to really feel maybe why it was different or how it's different. But like, there's just this clear, palpable difference when you actually use the tools, that it just feels much, much more useful and much more capable. In the essay I talk about like maybe why I think that is, it's a confluence of things. There's better models. We had adopted this sort of spec-first development or spec-driven development, sort of became a more popular thing in the industry in the last few months. We had started really embracing that and trying it out. We switched from being in the editor in the IDE to, CLI. And I think just the confluence of these things really has, led me to believe that like we as engineers are truly capable of something much more than we were before. And you mentioned the positive vibe. I think that I sort of wanted two things. One is that just like the essay you shared, I think the call to action there is like, you really have to try it. And for me, I think like trying it was the thing that actually convinced me. But everyone's got, was it like a, inertia is a powerful force, right? Like it takes a lot to actually get moving, but like once you start, you really get rolling. And so it was sort of a call to action internally, not from some person on the internet, but someone they know and they can come talk to and can sort of, I can demonstrate, I've demoed a bunch of stuff to you. I've demonstrated stuff to people on the team. Yeah. And I think really seeing is believing. And so that was sort of one thing just to sort of really, again, the call to just try it. And then two, in terms of optimism, I think that like one big takeaway for me or one big difference, I sort of borrowed this from the OpenClaw founders podcast with Lex Friedman, was that like, it's really, these tools are like totally different, totally new, like nothing we've seen before, right? But they also, you can use the tool to teach yourself how to use the tool. And I think that's like one fundamentally different thing from a technological change perspective, right? I think as I say in the essay, like, this change comes with a manual, right? Yeah. And it's not just any manual, it's like the best manual you could ever have, right? Like I think to quote him, it's like this infinitely patient answering machine that can take you at any speed you want, at any level of complexity you want. Yeah. And like, it's just there at your fingertips within the tool itself. So I think that's one huge difference.
It's kind of annoying almost now. I used to ask people questions on Slack and, they'd either have an answer for me or they said, let me look into it. Now the answer 80% of the time is like, have you asked Claude?
Right.
And honestly, when people ask me questions, like I'm actually thinking about the same thing too. Mm-hmm. So when I speak with a lot of folks that are like, I use the term like AI pilled for like fully in and like have understood kind of the benefit for AI. I feel like there's a tale of two cities, right? Like there's the people that have tried it and not tried it on some simple task. In the Something Big is Happening essay by like Matt Schumer, he talks about how don't do it for like something you would Google search. Like give it something real and like actually see what it can come up with. I think that's what actually like gets people really like embedded into the workflow. But the question that I think for like the 95% of people that haven't really gotten deep in the workflow is like, what's different now?
Yeah.
And, there's a couple of different answers that I think you could imagine for it. Like, I don't know if you've seen this one by Meter, which is like, it's basically the time horizon of like software tasks that LLMs can do independently and running autonomously. What it measures is like how long was the task that like a human could take? And then like now, what does it look like? And I think that my point of view is there's two things that may have changed. The first is like there was a bump in model capabilities that came around with GPT-5.2 and then also like Cloud's Opus model with 4.6. And then the second is these agent harnesses actually got really good too, where you could run tasks a little bit more in parallel. It had a better context engine. Right. But what's your point of view? Like what's actually changed?
Yeah. Okay, good question. I actually do recognize this Meter graph. I was at Anthropic maybe a year ago, and they were giving a talk and quoting this thing, and they were saying, "Oh, our agents can now do, hour-long tasks. They used to be able to do half an hour-long tasks every 9 months. They double the length or something like that." And to me, like that just didn't seem. That is not was not my lived experience then.
Yeah,
I'll be somewhat contrarian here. Like this is not my lived experience now. Like I still like can't trust an agent to run more than I don't know a few minutes, like maybe 10 minutes. Yeah. Before I catch it doing something silly. Yeah. And I think that, that doesn't mean I don't believe that the technology isn't going to make us 10x more productive, because I can see it looks to me like just from first principles and sort of the tools that are arriving, like, or the ways that the techniques we're developing to use these tools are getting better and better and better. And again, I'd like to refer back to the OpenClaw founder. It's like, the models are amazing. They're really great. But like, if you hired, the smartest person in the world and you dropped them at your desk and you were like, do this thing I was about to do, they would do terrible at it, right? Because they just have no context. And so I think this idea of like harness engineering and building up the sort of framing around the agent to sort of make sure that it has the right context, that it's running with the same intuition and taste that we have. I think that to me is like the next big thing. Of course, the models will get better and the tools will get easier to use and all this stuff. But I think it's really about like us as humans, sort of understanding at first principles what these things are good at, what they're bad at, and how to sort of attack a specific problem domain in a specific way. So I think it's a lot about the techniques now. So for example, like spec-first development.
What is spec-first development?
Right, totally. So this is funny because I feel like it became like a term, maybe it's spec-driven development. I think that there's different names that the industry uses for it, but I think the idea is the same. It's basically you create this sort of plan. I read like Claude has plan mode. You create this plan with the agent before it goes to implement. And I think like, through our usage of coding agents, like you sort of get this intuition, and like, my team, we'd have discussions about like how to use a coding agent, what's working well, what's not working not. And like, maybe one thing I remember that Ankit on my team mentioned was like, I always ask the agent, like, check with me before you make the change. And like, if you think about that, that's like, just like the very, like, that's like the seedling of the plan, right? And I think that the root of the problem, to credit again, someone else on the team, Siddhant, like, it's really about like, can you as the human, make sure that the agent understands what you want to do, right? And like the plan to me is just like a technique for doing that, right? Where like you and the agent agree what is to be done, and like you work with the agent to uncover these sort of hidden decisions that you wouldn't think about when you're writing. You write a design spec, but like as you go to implement, you realize there's these 10 other things you didn't think about.
These agents are notoriously people pleasers.
Yeah.
So how do you actually? You said it's when you and I, the agent, agree. How do you know if it's actually agreeing with what you do? Because anytime I say it, it says amazing idea, absolutely got it. Like, what's the?
So I want to sort of clarify like what I meant there. When I say agree, I mean we agree on sort of like the truths of the first principles, not how to do it. And in fact, I would actually guide people not to tell the agent like how to do something, but just what you want, right? So I'd say, oh, I'm trying to to implement this feature. Like, how would you do it? Not like implement this feature by doing X, Y, Z, right? Because like I may not have the best idea. It may think of things that I didn't think of. And so I think when we talk about agreement, as I'm building these specs or these plans, I'm actually mostly just asking questions to the agent. Well, like, what do you think about this? Oh, like, what alternatives did you consider? And I'm trying to sort of suss out like all the sort of decisions that like will have to be made by the agent and like make them upfront. or decisions it's already made without you maybe telling me. And so again, when I say like what I say, agreeing on what needs to be done, or like it's really about agreeing on understanding of like how the world is and what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that's sort of the big technique, the technique change that we've made that's driving like much better results.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I think you said, and like, is the reason that you wrote the essay was you got to get people to try it.
Mm-hmm.
What's that been like actually at Rubrik? You wrote this, you published it 2 days ago. Like,
Yeah.
what have you seen in terms of response for Claude Code, or, I think we're going to be rolling out some other technology soon too, but what have you seen internally?
Yeah. I mean, just to be clear, I think like this thing had the agents and Spec-first development has been catching sort of like wildfire. As soon as someone tries it, they love it. They try to, like there's, you have these evangelists that go and talk to their colleagues at lunch, or like, have their teammates try it, or they show someone. So I think that's happening organically. I think mine was just sort of a way to sort of formalize and again, like amplify the message that a lot of folks are already sort of trumpeting internally. In terms of driving change, though, I think there's always going to be like a segment of the population that are just like, what's the right word? More conservative, more skeptical, and like the essay part of it was just like yet another nudge to just really like, you can have your doubts, but until you try it, like, you really shouldn't like, sell it short. Like because to me, again, it's just like so incredible the difference in.
What should people try? Because I think what I see when I tell people to go try it is they kind of just stare for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the first instinct is to do something like, the first instinct is either do something toy, something like kind of totally made up, like, hey, what is the share price for Google or something along those lines, or it's like to do something completely unrelated to what you actually care about.
Plays Pokemon or something, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So my advice is always like, and I was trying to set my wife up with one of these, earlier this week, and I say, okay, whatever it was you're about to do next, let's just do it using this tool.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I have no idea what it is, but I promise you that it will add something to whatever you're about to do. Like it'll do it differently. It'll do better, do it faster. It'll uncover something you hadn't thought of. I really, and like to me, like that's always, maybe like this is like a philosophical thing for me. Like, for example, like a lot of times when I interview folks, like I'll just ask them about the problem I don't have like stock questions that I ask anymore. I just ask them like, oh, like here's this problem I'm working on. Like, let me ask them, like, one, they might give me some good ideas that I can incorporate in my work. Two, like I've thought about this a lot, right? So I kind of understand how I might try it, what might work, what might not work.
Yeah.
I've got some context. So I think, again, like if you're going to try to adopt a new technology, like what better way to try it out than like the thing you were just about to do? Because it's all your context already loaded. Anyways, that's what I would suggest. Yeah.
It was a silly example, but it's funny because I was thinking about this same idea of like, well, what am I actually currently working on? And it stood out to me to use Claude Code for, look, we just hired, Adam, you and I both work in like product and engineering. We just hired a new sales team, and we need to get that sales team up to speed on everything within the product. So what did we do? We had like kind of a conventional way that we normally would approach this, which was we made a game. And that game was essentially like a Jeopardy like game, where you'd basically say like, here's today's categories, and like, we walk everybody through it. I pointed Claude Code at this Jeopardy like PowerPoint file, and my prompt was like, insultingly simple, I want to say. I think my prompt was something like, take a look at this PowerPoint file, and can you actually create a working Jeopardy game I can play using this slide deck as content?
Mm-hmm.
Literally all I gave it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it took about 7.5 minutes, and it created this like 90s-esque Jeopardy game that I could go click into.
Very cool.
Had like a timer, within it, had score counters and others. Simple example. Wasn't even hosted, right? It's loading on my local, but it's something that I didn't do any work to be able to create.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of something that now some of my friends at OpenAI and Anthropic have been saying, and that you said to me like a week ago too, which is some of the best engineers haven't written code in 2 months.
Yep.
Because like ever since the harness came out and like Ops came out, have not written code.
Yeah.
What do you think the engineers internally are feeling like right now? Or the ones that are adopting AI and the ones that aren't?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think that like all the engineers, once I think they try this out and they sort of understand this paradigm shift, I think they'll all be super pumped, right? Because engineers like to build stuff, and like they're smart people, problem solvers. Like this should be just like, it's just an amazing new tool, right? I imagine like once we got the compiler, like engineers were just overjoyed, right? And I think that's a reasonable analogy to compare it to. Right? We don't write assembly anymore. We write programming languages. Now we're going to write natural language. It's going, the LLM is going to write programming language for us, and it's going to compile. Whatever. The point is like there's this big paradigm shift. But I think engineers should be really excited about it. And I think like one sort of misconception maybe I had, maybe other folks have, is that like, oh, like my job as an engineer is done. I just like, write a prompt and like poof, right? Like the product is delivered. And that might work for like, toy games like this for like a throwaway like sales training, but not for like enterprise software. And I think my message is like, yes, like, the act of like writing software is done, but like the act of engineers like thinking and problem solving is like totally not solved. Like I see like, this coding agent make all sorts of terrible decisions that I have to come and correct. And, like we have techniques for dealing with that, like the plan. And, you have this sort of like Socratic method of asking questions, right, to like elicit the answer.
Are you addressing these in the normal way that I think about with like code development, which is like, I'm going to put up a PR and there's going to be a reviewer who gives me comments. I'm going to look at those comments and then I'm going to like make a new diff and we kind of go back and forth until we agree. Or is there a different way that you think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still figuring that out. I mean, this is like literally all so new, right? Like, less than 3 months old, right? We've sort of made this paradigm shift. And I think we're trying to use old techniques and apply them in this new world. Maybe there's different ways we'll do this. Maybe who knows? I don't really know. I think the things that have worked for us, certainly like this, spec-first development. For me, what seems to work is if I can, divide it into phases. I mean, this is just like you would work with a team, right? Like you would try to decompose the problem and you would take it step by step. And like, one thing I've learned is like, maybe you can kick off all 5 phases of implementation, but like as you implement phase 1, you may realize something needs to change and that's going to implement all the downstream things. So like, I normally do like implement phase 1, review it, tweak, go to phase 2 and sort of take it step by step. Now, of course, like in the ideal state, you wouldn't have to do that. But I think that's to me, that's like where the tools are. Like there's extreme accelerant, but there's still a lot of human review and, intuition and problem solving and thinking. Like I think I have a section in the essay, like to me, like human thought is the new bottleneck in software development. It's no longer implementation or testing or deployment, whatever. It's like how clearly and I wouldn't even say quickly. Like to me, like I think the clarity of thought is the most important thing right now.
What's the advice you give to a new engineer now, though, or someone who's like graduating in CS and, we can tell them clarity of thought is now the new bottleneck. Yeah. And I'm like, I just took my data structs in Alex class. Like, I don't know how to go ahead and translate that into a skill set. Like if you had a new engineer, this is the class of people that if you look at all the economic reports, it feels like it's entry-level jobs that end up getting the most compressed.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has to be a bad thing. These people also seem like the ones that could be most easily equipped with AI. Totally. But they're not quite, like that's not what's happening in practice today. Right now, it's more like there's a little compression on that earlier stage. What would be your advice to like a new engineer, someone like fresh grad out that we'd be hiring here, or someone who's still, looking for that first role?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think it like maybe I'll try to answer it from both perspectives because I think it really does depend on your perspective. Or I'm always an optimist. I'm trying to like find like the optimistic take on either face.
Yeah.
So I think like I have my own bias, right? Like as like a experienced engineer who feels like I've learned some things along the way. I have this accumulated knowledge, instinct, taste, right? That like I've gotten from my mentors and like through, successful projects and catastrophes, right? Boondoggles, right? Like that's all sort of ingrained in me. And I think like if I was thinking about like what I want to do with new folks on my team is try to like imbue that somehow, right? Like this sort of intuition or, sort of nose for thing, I feel like like senior engineers will just know what I'm talking about when you're like, okay, something here doesn't smell right. I know it's going to cause a problem. I need to dig and like figure out what it is. And like, often you'll find something like, oh, there's some fatal flaw in like the architecture that
can
like, needs to be
Claude
right now.
Or can an Anthropic, like a model, teach me that intuition, or do I need to just suffer through examples? I mean, that's probably how you picked up the intuition.
I think I don't have an answer for that. Like I honestly have no idea. So that's like for the senior folks. Like I have my own bias because I've been around for a while. Now for the new folks, I think you could look at it as like, well, like all these dinosaurs, right? Like have no clue what AI is, right? Like, there were like, I think I took maybe like one AI class in undergrad. And then like, but I mean, that's kind of what I love about like the AI tech now. It's no longer like sort of what I'll call like deep tech. It's just like applied AI, sort of like what I feel like I do. Like I'm just learning how to use the tool, not how the tool works.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of these tools that's actually like very, why it's becoming so mainstream is like anybody can use it, which is amazing. You don't need to know how to code or know about like neural networks or deep learning, right? So my point is like, but like I think that the AI native folks, right, who are sort of, just starting out in their careers with this sort of capability built in, I think are far more equipped, right, than older folks like myself who are like stuck in our ways and have like, we think we know the right way to do something or the wrong way to do something. So I think that there is this value into like having no experience, right? Or like you're not afraid to try new things or think about things differently. And no one knows what the right way to use these tools is.
It's like a great
so brand
equalizer.
new, right? Yeah, I mean, it's a total reset, right, of software engineering as we know it.
Yeah.
So if I was coming up, maybe that's the thing that I would think about, like really like nobody knows anything. Like as long as I have like, reasonable like first principles thinking, right? And like clarity of thought, like why shouldn't I be able to do anything like some, 20-year experienced engineer can do?
Yeah.
Like, what do they have over me? Like, yeah, they've got some learned experience, but I can learn that from mentors. I can read about, I can try to pick this up on my own.
Yeah. Let's turn it back to Rubrik for a second. Like Rubrik is a top tier engineering organization, like a true Silicon Valley tech company that went from seed to public over the course of a decade. If you thought about like what we've seen in the Claude, like if I look at the Claude Code channel right now, I just see like, can I up my budget? Can I up my usage? Can I up my usage? That's like the thing that kind of keeps coming in. Is that translating to more productivity? And I don't know how do you measure productivity? How do we measure if this is actually generating something that's good, or the classic term people are talking about with AI slop?
Yeah.
Like which bucket is Rubrik in?
Good question. That's a really good question. I mean, that's one that I'm sort of tasked with trying to answer. So I can give you like sort of what my thoughts are. Maybe the first thing I'd say is like, just worth mentioning, like we have a channel for like, folks to discuss and adopt this. And I have never seen maybe I should get hard stats on this, but I've never seen activity on a channel like this before. And so like,
it's like weekends, right? Like I see this at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. That's like, hey, my Claude budget is running down. Like, and as people are fully hooked.
I mean, it's not just budget too. It's like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Does someone know about this? And like, it's just amazing to see like the energy and the collaboration. And like, I personally like also feel addicted because I feel like builders are like this, right? Like if you can start building something faster or better, like you just want to do more of it. And so like, I am one of these people now that's like, I feel like I'm addicted to using this thing because it's I mean, I feel like, like I have superpowers. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And I try to, by osmosis, like spread that right throughout the throughout the office through all sorts of stuff like this, the essay, when I'm talking to people. Cause like I it feels like I know it to be true that I am more productive at like some orders of magnitude, right? Like, so it's just like, I want everyone to feel this way because it's amazing. Like the tools are just incredible. Now your question was, how do we measure productivity?
Yeah.
I think it's a good question. I think we're not really sure, right? I mean, we've always struggled with this. Like, how do you measure engineering productivity? Is it activity metrics? Is it outcomes? Is it commits? Is it lines of code? We're not really sure. I think that, one thing I noticed early once we started using the plan mode, I would notice like, oh, phase one, add the schema, do these backend changes. Like this should take about 10 hours. Phase two, do blah, 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 blah. This is like 2 hours. And so maybe like the best thought I have now is like, maybe we can use LM as a judge to look at work retroactively.
What's LM as a judge?
Right. So use a model to say, to look at the artifact and say, okay, like, well, how much maybe like would this have taken in the old world?
Yeah.
And like use that. And it's not like I would say like, I'm thinking we would use it as a relative metric, right? So like, let's say we took all the commits from last year and we ran this like, like an estimation, right? Using the LM. And then we took all the commits from this year and we did the same estimation. Like maybe the estimation might not be perfect, but we'd have like a reasonable like relative score as to like how much we've improved this year. So that's my current thinking. I'm sure it'll change, week to week. But
increasingly, my answer for many problems is let's throw a model at it. Yeah. And I think that's kind of like how I think about this productivity piece. There is one challenge that I'm like, we have to throw a model at this, which was I started using Claude Code on a personal basis for like creating websites and others. Like maybe a month and a half ago, I started using it internally here over the last handful, like a few weeks or so. And one of the things that was very apparent to me was Claude Code, like, you give it a prompt, starts to go through a plan, and then it just starts to ask you for things. It starts to ask you for access, how it should go execute on things, and like, for resources. And I'm just hitting yes.
Yeah.
Because this harness, like, it operates so quickly that I feel like I would become the bottleneck if I like read through that and then tried to figure out the docs. And frankly, it's just easier. I don't think this is the right way to do it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But if I just had to tell you practically, what am I doing?
Totally.
I'm like going through and I'm just like, I want to see what the end result is. Hey, yes, yes,
approval
yes.
fatigue. Yes.
Approval fatigue. Give me the answer. Go through the system. That was Claude Code. I experimented with Cowork with a personal account. And I think it's even worse in that like approval fatigue sense, because now it has access to sort of like my, it has access to like my file system in my computer in the same way a human might do it. So it can spin up a browser, can open my file system, it could potentially upload something. Yeah. There was an example where, I hadn't configured Google Drive correctly with Cowork. And so the model essentially said, hey, look, Google Drive isn't configured correctly. And I'd asked it to create a document. But no problem. Let me go spin up a browser. And then let me write a file locally. Then let me go click the upload button there. And then let me open up your file. And I was like looking at this happen on my laptop. And I was like, oh my God, like you could be uploading anything, anywhere. It's the first time with AI that I've actually felt like I want someone watching over my shoulder to make sure I don't screw something up. The way that I've heard a customer describe this actually in a conversation before is like these agents are like really fast cars with no brakes. It's kind of amazing and like how quickly it could get you into the destination, but I don't know, I'm worried about crashing and I don't normally worry about crashing.
Yeah.
Like how do you think about this level of like the fact that approval fatigue comes with some probably non-trivial risk and like how we're supposed to actually even get our arms around it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like maybe take this a couple ways. Like one is like, I think better analogy is like no steering wheel, right? Or like you're not in control of the steering wheel. As in like, this car will drive you off the cliff because it doesn't care how it gets there. It doesn't care like what about you as the passenger. Like you've gave it your goal, it's going to get there. Like, it doesn't really care whether it uploads things, onto the internet, as long as it achieves your goal.
Yeah.
Oh, I said, share this thing with Adam. I can't post it I can't share it to his Google Drive. Let me just put it on the internet.
It's going to get me from San Francisco to Palo Alto, even if it takes me through the bay and through the water.
Exactly. So I think that's maybe that's the better analogy for me. Cause like, it's like the thing doesn't want to break, right? Like even if it had brakes, it's not going to break. It's just going to do what it needs to do. And
it's scary.
I think
the thing doesn't want brakes.
These models are, like you mentioned, they're people pleasers. They're trying to accomplish their goal. And they're very creative, right? And they don't have the same sense that you do, right? Like, oh, well, like I also want to be alive when I get there, right? Like they just because you didn't tell it, right? Like maybe it's not in the whatever. The point is
you missed that in the spec-driven development. That's like one of the axioms.
I mean, of course, there's like values imbued in the model, this sort of thing. But like, I think that the point is still valid. That like they're very creative at accomplishing their task, and like they'll have unintended consequences. And I mean, like not to like talk our own book, but like that is why we ended up building Agent Cloud, right? Like we were trying to deploy coding agents, in the early forms, and we realized like, oh my God, like you have to give these tools, but what's it going to do with these tools? These models make mistakes all the time. Like, what are we going to do? And so that really was the genesis of Rewind and Agent Cloud. And we struggle with this internally, and we are building for ourselves, not just for our customers, and that like we are afraid to roll out certain AI tools because of what they might do. And like it makes you'd have to be extremely risk on or maybe foolhardy to like just blindly adopt these tools. Like I mean, you saw it yourself, right? Like once you see the thing start controlling your computer, doing who knows what, like you do want somebody watching out, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't be watching the whole time.
Yeah. So most people probably aren't familiar. What is Agent Cloud? You mentioned like we started to solve this for ourselves. Like what does that actually look like?
Yeah. I mean, well, Agent Cloud is a system for monitoring and governing agents. We have a bunch of agents running internally. We have coding agents, and like we need to know sort of what they're doing, what they have access to, what they should have access to. We have some interesting examples from recently, monitoring the Claude Code traffic. But the point is like we want to be able to set policies as an organization. I don't know, like agents don't write to Salesforce. They don't share sensitive information in publicly accessible locations. I don't know. They don't delete production databases, that sort of thing, right? Just common sense stuff where like, you as a human would just never do this. AIs don't necessarily know not to do that. So you need to put in place some policies and some governance to make sure that they're operating within your constraints.
So you mentioned like there are some examples like of how we've picked this up with Agent Cloud. Curious if you could share a little bit of like what that examples actually look like.
Yeah, totally. So we're actually going through our like yearly performance review. We call it OPE here at Rubrik, and we just happened to hook up Claude Code to Agent Cloud. And one of the engineers on the team noticed, hey, like, did you see the OPE bot or the promotion committee bot? And I was like, what? Like, we have a promotion committee bot? And so sure enough, like we pulled it up in Agent Cloud, right? And you can actually see, the controls are hiding it. Yep, there it is. Like there's some enterprising engineer manager out there has created a promotion committee assistant, right, that looks at our Rubrik and probably fetches data from Confluence, GitHub, Google Drive, Jira, SharePoint. Right. So like, I don't know, like maybe this is okay, maybe it's not. But the point is at least now we can see it and like we can maybe try to figure out like what's going on, what it has access to, and try to govern it, right? And so anyways, I think it's just a really interesting example where like, we're not, like people are going to use AI in very creative ways to get their job done.
Yeah.
Someone's on a promotion committee. Maybe it's the chair. Maybe it's someone on the committee.
Yeah.
Maybe it's someone trying to get promoted. I don't know. Like, but
Yeah.
but people are going to use these tools like to accomplish their objectives. And again, we talked about the risks of these tools. Like we want to have some way to sort of govern them. So.
And Adam, what would putting a steering wheel onto the car look like? Maybe in the context of, what we have internally here or what we need to add in order for it to really feel like a steering wheel.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I wouldn't say I have like an amazing answer. I mean, I think that the key insight that we had in building agents, the other thing we focused on first was the tool use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like agents can say crazy things. They can, tell you, give you poor financial advice or, tell you to break the law or whatever. But like the tools are really allow them to take action, right? And like, really put your enterprise at risk, whether it's, again, like deleting databases or publishing stuff on the internet or, I don't know, making up, imaginary customers, whatever it is. And so I think we're really focused on the tool use. We have different ways of thinking about it. Like maybe one simplistic way is like, okay, if I can just create like common sense policies, right, and have those administered, or if I can have the system notice things that any reasonable human would be like, what is that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, it might be like, oh, like I see this promotion committee bot. Maybe we shouldn't do promotions using like an AI or something like that. And so it could just at least flag it and let us know like these types of things are happening. And so again, this is like a real use case. Maybe now we'll evolve the product to like catch this type of thing. It just gives us honestly, like just being able to look at what's happening gives you ideas about like how you might want to govern. So I think it's sort of this chicken and egg thing where you kind of have to see first and then react.
Yeah, no, I think that it's one of the things that I feel like hear the most frequently. It's this combination of feeling like people are flying with no visibility whatsoever. Like they're basically flying a plane, but they can't see anything out of it. And then they also don't have like any cockpit control about what's happening. Mm-hmm. And all this is happening basically at accelerated pace because 2.5 months ago, I feel like we were talking about this in the abstract. Mm-hmm. And like, I think in the last 2.5 weeks, we probably started to see this like very much kind of actually happen in practice.
Yeah.
Adam, I want to do a quick lightning round. We'll ask 3 questions.
Sure.
We'll do it short answers. One question is, knowing what you know today about like what agentic tools and AI can do, what would your advice to yourself coming fresh out of college, and going into your first tech job? What would be some advice that you give to yourself at that point?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, I think maybe we talked about it already, but I think I just have to try, right? And like, try and then try and then try again, right? Like if you think you know what you're doing, like try to do it better. Like if you don't think you can figure it out, like try harder because you can. Like, again, this thing that comes with this like infinitely patient answering machine, right? This manual that's like magic, right? Like I feel like there's nothing I can't learn to do now, virtually, right? Like in the virtual world, right? There's just no reason why I can't learn to do it. Like now I am the only impediment, right? Yeah. Me, and it's not even me. It's like my willingness to like just start typing. How does this thing work? How can I do this thing? Yeah. And I think that's like that really is like the biggest hurdle to clear. Just like the belief in yourself that you can actually use these tools to do something you didn't think you could do before. And like doing that a couple times will give you this confidence, right? Or this willingness to just sort of jump in and try.
Tell me about software engineering. Isn't that question number 2? We assess software engineers through interviews, typically coding interviews or system design or something along those lines, but usually multiple rounds of coding interviews where you're reversing a linked list or something similar.
Yeah.
How are we going to assess software engineers 3 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, I never really thought that you were testing just the ability to produce code, right? Because I feel like those people you can find, right? Yeah. I think it's more about the thought process. And I think like, good questions, like good interviewers are able to suss that out. It's not about like whether you can implement the linked list really quickly or solve the super complicated algorithm problem. It's like how you approach the problem. For me, like how was your clarity of thought? Even if you're wrong, can you explain why, like what your approach was? And then like, oh, it just turned out to just be some assumption that you had, like you misunderstood the question I asked you, that sort of thing. So again, I don't know that much has changed in terms of evaluating people's ability to think. Like we're just using different tools. Like, I don't know, I'm sure coding interviews changed from punch cards to, to Golang, right? But like, I bet the general, like, like objective of the interview is the same, right? Like I'm evaluating this person. Can they, like, is this someone I want to work with? Can they think well? Can they communicate? Like, I don't think any of that is changing. Maybe the modality by which we build our product is changing, but again, I think it's more of the same.
I want to ask you the last question, and I think it's, I can phrase it in one of two different ways. The way I like to phrase it is, what do you know to be true that you think most people are missing? Another way to think about it is like, what do you think people are underhyping, undervaluing, when it comes towards this future that's going to be revolving around AI agents?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I know anything anyone
it's a hard
doesn't
question.
know. Like, I mean, I feel like...
Let me give you a quick piece of context for why I asked. I think 7 years ago, I got asked this question about AI and machine learning. What is the underhyped area in machine learning?
Yeah.
By the way, in 2017, ML still felt pretty overhyped. So I said, honestly, the underhyped area in machine learning is like data labeling and data infrastructure. So in 2017, I was like, scale AI is like one of the examples of something that I feel like people aren't actually thinking about enough, because labeled data is the bottleneck towards like creating all this value people think is going to come out of AI. What do you think that is today? Like, if there is a parallel?
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is like a non-answer, but like I don't want to mix. I don't know. I mean, like what I know to be true is that like things are changing extremely rapidly, and like maybe I'll say that anyone who tells you they know what is like what the future is going to be like is just full of it. Like there's just no way that's true. Like, I mean, at least I don't feel that to be true. Like it's just so it's so, I don't want to say unpredictable, but like it just feels like there's so many different ways this could go. And I don't feel like, I certainly don't have a sense of like where it's going to go. I think that like the important things are that like we sort of are like ready, and like, I mean, again, like I take this optimistic view. Like I think like optimism is like a very important like thing to focus on now, because like things are going to change dramatically. The thing you were super good at is not going to be valuable anymore. Like the thing you did like yesterday. That doesn't mean like your intuition and your ability is not valuable. So I think like it's really important to stay like optimistic and eager to learn and to like adapt, if you will, to whatever is coming. But again, like whoever tells you they know what's coming, like 5 years from now, even a year, 6 months from now, like I have no clue. It just seems so fluid and so and the scale of change is just so like rapid and vast. It's just hard to. I don't want to make any prediction.
And even if we ask this infinitely patient answering machine, it probably doesn't know yet either.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of what's going to happen in the future.
That's for sure.
Adam, thanks so much for joining us kind of on the show. This was a real pleasure.
Yeah, it was a blast.
To be able to walk through everything about how we've ourselves started to notice that something big is happening inside of the own organization, what that's actually manifested to externally, and what we think that's going to mean for the future, which might be that the only thing we know for certain is it's going to change quickly. So this has been a great episode for us to be able to kind of cover. And thank you everyone who's had a chance to be able to stick with us at Dev in Details. If there's anything that you'd like to see us cover in a future topic, please drop it in the comments. And we look forward to catching up with you on our next show.